Good morning. You're watching PLZ Soccer's Scottish Morning News Bulletin outside Celtic Park after the news that Neil Lennon has resigned as Celtic manager after 2 years in charge, with the team 18 points behind league leaders Rangers at the top of the Scottish Premiership with just 8 games left to play. His current assistant, John Kennedy, has been placed in interim charge. Now, we understand that the Hoops have been in crisis talks since Sunday night's 1-0 loss to Ross County in the Premiership, which means that Rangers only need 7 more points to be crowned title winners. There was a statement put out this morning. Neil Lennon said that he was frustrated with the way that the season had gone. There have been many factors that contributed to it, but that he was ultimately disappointed he couldn't turn it around. He tried his utmost. He said he will always be a fan of the club. Outgoing Chief Executive Peter Lawwell also spoke this morning. He said no one could diminish Neil's loyalty to the club, what he had given. He never questioned that he was trying his utmost. He highlighted the quadruple treble that Neil Lennon had secured for the club, but that inevitably the season hasn't gone the way anyone here would have wanted. Both parties ended by thanking each other for what they've done for both of them and wishing them well for the future. But how will Lennon be remembered here at Parkhead, and how did it get to this stage? Of course, he was a legend on the field. He was here for 7 years. He won 11 trophies. He first became manager back in 2010, winning 3 titles in a row, the first 3 of the 9-in-a-row sequence they are currently on. He also won 2 Scottish Cups. And when Brendan Rodgers left for Leicester City 2 years ago, Neil Lennon was the obvious choice, a safe pair of hands to try and guide the club to that 8th straight title. In his 14 games in interim charge, he did exactly that. He also won the treble against Hearts at Hampden at 2-1 in the 2019 Scottish Cup final. Last season started off brightly as well. They won the League Cup against Rangers. They weren't the better team, but they came away with the trophy 1-0 in December 2019. And when March last year hit and the pandemic came, they were awarded the title on a points per game basis. That secured their 9th title in a row, but this season things were different. Football returned in August, but summer signings, Albion Ajeti, Vasilis Barkas, Shane Duffy, didn't hit the ground running. The big stars that were here at Parkhead weren't playing to their usual standards. Neil Lennon said that many of them wanted away, but none were sold. The only thing that did stay the same was their exit to the Champions League. They went out on a whimper to Ferencváros back in the summer. It was reminiscent of their exit to Cluj a year earlier. So the writing could have been seen to be on the wall back then. Many Celtic fans, of course, disappointed they didn't make it into the Champions League. Their league form started okay. Rangers were steamrolling on as the old firm arrived here in August, the first of the season, and Rangers were victorious 2-0. Connor Goldson with a brace. Celtic didn't even muster a single shot on target. That started a winning run of just 2 games in their next 12, the worst run the club had been on in 21 years. During that time, they were eliminated from the Europa League. Embarrassing back-to-back 4-1 losses home and away to Sparta Prague saw them get knocked out of that competition in bottom place. But perhaps most embarrassingly of all, it was the elimination of the League Cup. It was Ross County 2-0 here at Parkhead on the 29th of November. It was their first domestic cup defeat in 36 games. Now that led to fan protests and fan banners, plenty of them. It got quite bad. The case was that the police had to escort the players and the staff away from the stadium for a couple of games after that. But Chief Executive Peter Lawwell backed his man. He gave Lennon until the end of the year to turn things around, try and secure that quadruple treble. That silenced many of the doubters. The protests, certainly. The quadruple treble was won. Form was picked up. The likes of David Turnbull came into the team. They beat Hearts in the Scottish Cup final on the 20th of December on penalties. And they seemed rejuvenated going into the new year and the new year Old Firm on January the 2nd. It was seen as make or break for Celtic. And in the end, it was break. 1-0 to Rangers at Ibrox meant that they were really in the driving seat and no one really saw them turning it around from there. Celtic flew off for their mid-season trip to Dubai, and as they did, so did their hopes of 10 in a row. Now, the pandemic situation at home worsened whilst they were away from home. They were in Dubai. there were pictures emerging on their one day off of the players having a day off. As Neil Lennon said, there was no law breaking. They came back to a barrage of hypocrisy. Who could forget that infamous press conference when Lennon returned home? But the writing was on the wall. It was plain to see. 2 people came back with coronavirus. 13 players in total, as well as Kennedy and Lennon, had to self-isolate. And the evidence was here on the park. On Monday, the 11th of January, the team was absolutely diminished. They drew 1-1 to Hibernian. 2 more draws followed straight up after that, both of them to Livingston, and that rendered their title challenge all but over. Form has picked up over the last month, but damaging losses at home to St Mirren and to Ross County on Sunday spelled the end for Neil Lennon. Now, what is interesting is when you compare his 2 spells in charge, the win ratio is exactly the same, 70%. But this time round, the stakes were much higher. So after 110 games in charge, 77 wins, 16 losses, Lennon's spell is over. Looking forward, what's going to happen now? Well, we know that Kennedy will be in interim charge. We don't know if that's just until the end of the season. There's only 8 games left, perhaps a Scottish Cup as well. We still haven't heard from the SFA if that will continue. Will he be in charge until a successor is appointed? Will he be in charge until the new chief executive, Dominic Mackay, arrives? Let's have a look at some of the possible successors for Lennon, though. Kennedy is the current favourite, but no one really expects him to be the top boss when the next season comes around in August. After that, it's Steve Clarke, the Scotland manager. There's no way he'll leave before Euro 2020. He's led Scotland to their first major tournament in 23 years. His contract does run up until the Qatar World Cup in 2022, but could he be tempted to Celtic Park? He was so successful in Scottish domestic football back with Kilmarnock a couple of years ago, leading them to a 3rd place finish. We'll have to wait and see if he's their #1 target. Many Celtic fans online today have seemed quite keen to bring in Clarke. Other ones that have been attracting fans' adulation online and the bookies are Eddie Howe, Roberto Martinez, we can see it now, Frank Lampard, Rafa Benitez. Big names, big coaches, all quite short odds. Roberto Martinez, of course, played for Motherwell. He's got Scottish connections. Eddie Howe was tipped to perhaps take over from Lennon in the summer, but that never came around. Lampard has been sacked by Chelsea. Perhaps they go down the Rangers route. Sack a former England legend, a player that was a legend of the game. Is he the man to stop Gerrard? But it's a huge job for Dominic Mackay. He's coming in from Scottish rugby to replace Peter Lawwell after nearly 20 years in the role. He's got a new manager to find. He's got the title to wrestle back off Rangers, and they look imperious at the moment, still not lost a game all season. And he will have a squad rebuild on his hands as well. We've already seen Jeremy Frimpong, Hatem Abd El Hamid, Olivier Cham leave in the winter. Will Moore go? Christopher Ayer, Odsonne Edouard, Ryan Christie all just have 16 months left on their current deals. There's question marks over plenty of others as well. Scott Brown's contract is expiring. There's players on loan. Shane Duffy, Mo El Yunusi. It's a massive job for whoever does come in here. We'll be bringing you all the latest as it comes over the next few days, few weeks, few months, however long it takes. But questions remain here at Celtic Park. Lennon has resigned. Was it his call, or was it the board's call? If it was the board's call, why now? Why not earlier? That's what fans are asking. The writing was on the wall for when the Champions League exit happened back in the summer. Should it have happened on the 29th of November when they were knocked out by Ross County, the team that eventually knocked Lennon off his perch? There was plenty of fan protests. Would that have saved the league season? Would that have saved the 10 in the row? That's the big question that Celtic fans will be asking. We want to hear from you, Celtic fans. We want to hear from all Scottish football fans or just fans of the game. What do you make of Lennon's time in charge? Who was at fault for not winning 10 in a row this season? Or was it just down to Rangers' brilliance? Or is it the board here? Is it Lennon himself? Should he have walked earlier? Should he have been sacked? We have the football show coming up at 4 o'clock on PLZ Soccer's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow. It's going to be fiery. There's going to be so many interesting points of discussion. Don't forget to tune in then, and you can stay with me online for all of the latest throughout the day and the week